Good morning and welcome again to another edition of Universal Energies. I have with me here today a lovely lady who has been on a visit before, and we've talked about other things. This time we're talking about astrology. So welcome, Jackie Wrenn.
Hi.
Now Jackie, I know that you are very much influenced by the astrology. I've seen you at your work and the way you give out the readings to people to help them in their lives. So let's start straight away by saying, what is astrology?
Well, astrology is a correlation of planets up in the sky, and we have 12 zodiac signs, ranging from Aries to Pisces, and they influence our lives, I think, every day. And the planets, when they connect to each other, they create events, they create situations in our life, and basically each planet, I believe, affects us in different ways.
I'm sure. Yes, that I've known people who had many readings or charts done by astrologers and yourself, but other people as well, who have kept their charts and they refer them like a reference as they go along. So that brings me nicely onto the situation here, whereby how do you think it influences us in our lives then?
Well, the planets all have different meanings to them, and while they're in their in the zodiac signs, they have an effect. I draw up a wheel, and it gives you all the different events in your life. So, take the moon for instance. The moon affects everybody, I believe. Anyway, it affects the tides. It affects women's hormones. So if that's the case, then why don't the other planets affect us in different ways as well?
Absolutely, yeah, very good, yeah. So, as we're going along here, okay, people read in the papers star signs and different things here.
Yeah.
Some people are very influenced by them and, in fact, will not do certain things because they've been told not to do so.
Yeah.
And what is your take on that?
Well, I believe the newspapers are very generalised anyway. I don't think you get a correct reading until you've actually seen an astrologer and had a chart drawn up, because every chart is individual, and it's like a blueprint. When you're born, the chart shows a blueprint of all the planets that stand still, and they are unique to every person, and it's like a fingerprint. So the papers, they just do generalised,
right,
and you get some people turn around and say, that's got nothing to do with me. I'm a Sagittarius and I don't do things like that. And then somebody else might say, well, actually, I do.
Yeah.
And because the planets all move into different signs, it actually affects.
Yeah.
It's an individual thing. It's not a generalised thing.
No.
So they just say a general.
It's a gen.
I
understand exactly where you're coming from on that, and we've both know people.
Yeah.
And most people who view this today will know people who are very influenced by that, and and on the other hand, very much don't want to know.
Some people just say,
oh
no, that's a load of rubbish.
That's the individual choice anyway. That's going in there. Okay.
Yeah.
So we know a little bit about the star signs and the planets. So let's just link this in astrology with astronomy, where the star signs are there. We're gazing at the sky and we're seeing the star signs and there. Do you think maybe that astronomy and astrology were born at the same time, or did one come before the other?
I don't know. I personally, my opinion is I believe obviously astronomy has always been there. I think that's where we first discovered the planets.
Right.
And I think as time went on, they started to humanise it and personalise it and put words to each planet to explain to us how it actually affects us, i.e., say Mercury. They put communication. They made it a communication planet because Mercury is the messenger. Mars is a red planet. It's a hot planet. So they made words that were like energy, and our favourite colour, and Aries is a favourite colour is red. Mars is red, and they seem to correspond with each other. So I believe astronomy does have a close link with astrology.
Yeah.
I just think all they did was humanise it by putting words to the planets. Because like I say, Mars is a hot planet, so they created a word that's energy. And
I quite agree.
Understand,
and also perhaps influence and not that was the ancients, where Mars was a god, Mercury was a messenger, Venus was a goddess of love. Those kind of things. I can see exactly where you're coming from there. And so they are linked. Both of them are linked.
Yeah.
When you give people a reading of maybe astrological reading, you've talked about you doing, you didn't call it a chart, but we've spoken about it before, that you would do a chart, okay? How would you get the chart?
Well, in the old days I used to do it all by hand, but nowadays we've got computers because it's all very mathematical. I will then just take details from the person, which is their date of birth, their place of birth, where they were born, and most important of all is their time of birth, because if we don't have a time, we can't find the events in their life that are touched upon as time goes on. So time is very important, even though you can still get a lot from a character, because of all the planets that line up with each other. You can get a character analysis, but if you want events in your life, then you have to have a time. So once I've got all that information, then I can draw up the chart, and I can actually give an interpretation.
So it's not just plucked from the universe. It's a case of quite mathematical.
It is very mathematical.
And knowledgeable.
Yes.
That is there as well.
Yes.
Some people will go down the roads of astrology, astronomy, numerology, around that sort of area there. They're all to do
with
mathematics. They're all that way inclined. So now we've got the chart. We've taken it from the computer. How do we go from there?
Well, then I just interpret it from the meanings of the planets, because every planet has a meaning behind it. Every star sign has a meaning behind it, and every star sign is ruled by one of the planets as well. So you have to look at that. It's very, very, very complex. And then you've got the houses, which are the events in people's lives, i.e., for instance, work. Could be work, it could be family, home, relationships, spirituality, stuff like that.
All kind of events.
So and wherever the planets sort of land at that particular time of birth, are the areas that are most affected. You know, so it's a case of you have to interpret each individual thing together, and then you've got to sort of put it all together. It's like a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. You have to put all the pieces together, and it's very, very complex.
So are you saying that we can or we can't change what is being written or in the stars, if you like?
Well, you can. There is supposed to be an element of free will with astrology, and we call them aspects, which are the dynamics, the energies between the planets when they get within a certain degree of each other. A bit like a magnet. When you put the magnets together, you get a pull, and it's the same with the planets. As soon as it comes into some sort of a contact, then it creates what we call an aspect.
Right.
And we have several aspects which are quite stressful, and some which are positive. Okay, so the way I see it is, when I look at a chart, I look at the negatives and the positive, and I look at the planets, and if there are negatives coming off one planet and a positive, I try and guide them down the positive road.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's really down to the person whether they choose to take. I call them paths. They're different paths. You can carry on going down the negative path, or you can go down I try and explain. Yeah, I try and explain where the negative comes from.
Right. Okay.
But I also try and explain where they could actually channel their positive energies.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, it's their choice.
But you can influence the positive.
Yes.
More than the negative.
Yes,
but you can tell them, surely, as you say, about that negative and how things are. And generally, they probably will tell you exactly what you've just told them anyway.
Yeah. That's very
true.
true.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how important would you say this is to people?
Well, I think it's a great tool, because some people go through life oblivious to what's going on around them. They just keep going down the same road, and they lose themselves. And 9 times out of 10, somebody who comes to see me has got a blockage of some kind, and when I sort of explain where the blockage is, they go, so that's the influence. And then I go to the positive and say, well, but there is a positive between these 2 planets, and obviously in the area in their life. So it could be within the home, it could be with children, it could be with family, or a relationship even, or work. That could all come into play. And you could say, well, if you channel those energies by, maybe writing a book or doing spiritual things. I've had a lot of spiritual people come to me where they're doing different healings and things like that. So if they do certain healings, they can heal themselves as well by trying to heal others. And it's very, very complicated, but most people take it on board. You know what I say? I'm
just looking at the aspects now. I know we haven't discussed this, but I'm looking at the aspects of 2 different individuals, both with the same star sign.
Yes.
Maybe, as you said, the influence of the time of birth is very important.
It certainly is.
Maybe having different times of birth. And how much different would that be from one chart? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, and I know it's not easy for you to answer.
What, you mean like if you got twins or something like that?
No, just 2
individual
people.
Yeah.
They have the same stars, say Cancerian, because I'm a Cancerian.
Yeah.
Say they're both Cancerians, they're both males.
Yeah.
One is born at the beginning of the month, and one is born at the end of the month.
Yeah. Well, what happens is, when we get a chart, that is That is, all the planets stood still. Okay, but they continue to move.
Right.
I mean, once you're born, that's it. You've got your chart. That's your chart for life.
Right.
But in the skies, they continue to move. So there are certain planets that move much faster than other planets, i.e., the Sun, the Moon, Mercury. They all move much faster. So the end of the month, they would have all moved on into another sign. So even though they might be a Cancerian, their moon would have moved off somewhere.
Right.
You could have moon in Aquarius, and the next one, the next person could have the moon a lot further on in Taurus, say. So then that would actually change the emotional energies of that person. So although they are basically a Cancerian, all the other planets actually play a part because they move into different signs. And that actually, all their energies are completely different to, say, you to another person. So although basically you're both Cancerians, you might think differently, you might feel differently. And that is the difference, because the moon represents emotions, Mercury represents communication and the way you think. So you could actually get a Cancerian and have the moon in the next sign, which is either in Gemini or in Leo. But another Cancerian might have his Mercury right next to his Sun in Cancer, which would make them a true Cancerian. But if you had it in the next sign, that would change the way you are. It will either tone it down, or it might make you quieter, or it might make you more assertive, depending on what sign it's gone into. So it does make a difference. That's why the newspapers are so general. That's why if you've got two Cancerians reading the same thing, a true Cancerian, they'd say, well, yeah, that's the sort of thing that would, that's me. The next one, who might have the Mercury in another sign, will go, well, that's nothing like me. Absolutely not. I'm nothing like that. And that's what changes it.
I find it fascinating to the point whereby that a scenario I want to place with you now, two Aries,
yeah,
to a male and a female,
yeah,
born on the same day,
yeah,
only minutes between of them,
yeah,
by different parents, obviously.
yeah.
Okay, and are chalk and cheese.
Really? Well, that is because, will you say the time? The time's the same, or just maybe a few minutes out?
A few minutes.
Well, that few minutes does make a difference, because the wheel moves around, the planets move around, the wheel, and of course the wheel moves around too. Well, one goes in one direction, and the other goes in the other direction. And I've got twin cousins, and one won the lottery, but the other one didn't. But he gained from his brother's lottery win, but because they were twins, it carries on moving. And of course the moon would have gone into another house, the Mercury would have gone
Will it
somewhere
come round
else.
to Cancerian sometime?
but that is why you never get two the same.
No,
because
that's
the moon and Mercury move at such a speed that it just moves. Just a minute could move it into another house, you see, and where he obviously had the luck to win the lottery, my other cousin only gained from his win, but he didn't actually win himself, because his planets had moved on. I think he was the younger one. He was born later, and that's how it works. The time is essential. It really is. I've
been influenced to tell you that maybe we get that saying, what will be, what comes round goes round.
Yes.
Maybe we get those sayings from that, because it seems very influential to me. I find it fascinating, all this kind of mathematical and theological work that we all do together. I just find it fantastic, and very, very influences in all our lives here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as time is getting on just a little bit, let's move things forward a bit here. And what do you do? How do you keep people's reading? Where do you do this?
Well, I did used to do it from home for many, many years, but that it was just mainly friends and family and things like that. But then I found these mind, body, spirit fairs, and decided to go along and see if I sort of fitted in with all those type of people.
Just interrupt you there. I remember the first one that you came, and that was at Oxford.
Yeah. And
you came, and I persuaded you to get a move on and do things.
Yes, you did.
I can be very persuasive.
I know. And you remembered. Wow.
I do, yes, I did.
I remember that.
That came straight into my mind just like that.
Well, and all the people around me have influenced me an awful lot and pushed me, forward. And I've I go all over the country now because I'm sort of semi-retired. I
never.
Yes.
Oh, right.
And I travel around. I travel around the country in my motorhome, and I go to all the different fairs and holistic fairs and that's what I do at the moment. I have done some talks. I did a talk, if you remember.
Yes, you did.
At one of your
the Awareness Centre.
That's right.
Yes, you did.
And I don't know how I managed to do that, but you persuaded me, and I did. And yes, I've taught. I've actually taught astrology in my local area, and I really enjoyed that. And people really did enjoy it. They thought they would never ever be able to understand it, but once you break it down, it is quite easy. And obviously, you've got to have a good memory, of course. Yes, I've done that. I've done parties. I've done parties in people's homes, which are great fun, and workshops. So, that's mainly what I do. So.
I know guys that I've seen Jackie do MBS's fairs and talks, and I know how good she is. So Jackie, if I was to come along to you for a reading, okay?
Yeah.
And it was at one of these mind-boggling fairs, okay? You would have your computer there with you?
I certainly would.
And you'd have a chart that comes up on the computer. Is there something that could be given to a person at the end after a reading?
Well, some people have actually asked if I could print something off, and I have done. I've printed off some details and their chart, and I've sent it to them because it's not everybody asks. But I also do a CD recording now.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I give a CD recording. So because some people say, "Well, I'll never remember all this," when I go away. I think people are a little bit nervous of astrology because I don't think they quite understand, because it is quite complicated. But if I give them a CD and record the reading, they're quite happy with that because they say, "Oh, I can go back and check it," So yeah.
Do you get people coming back to you time and again?
I have had a couple of people, yeah, because I can do what I call transits, which means I can see where the planets are going, which obviously gives you future readings. Like some people, might want to know whether they're going to get a job or a new relationship or something like that, and then what I do is I check where the planets go and where they line up. If they line up with anything in their own chart, then I will say, well, there's a strong possibility. I can't actually say, "Oh, you've got a man coming into your life." All I can say is where the energies are.
That's a different workshop altogether, didn't it?
Yeah. So and if they're in a good place or in a good position, then I can say, well, it is possible, because some people do want to know the future, and I can look forward. And I look back and I can do the present, so past, present and future, because the planets continue moving. And that is why you have that for the rest of your life, and that's why different events happen in people's lives. Because the planets move on, they line up with your planets in your chart, so it's a never-ending thing. So, you know, some people might come back and say, well, you know, what's happening, you know, what's happening now, or, you know, it really depends on what people want, really.
I'm a great believer in whatever you do, study and find out about it. And you give people the tools right there and then to study and find out. So have you ever had anybody theoretically, come back to you and said, well, you said this was going to happen, that was going to happen, something else was going to happen, and it hasn't happened?
No, I haven't.
Right, okay.
I haven't. So I've had so many people go away saying, I'm so glad I saw you.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't understand what it's about, and I find that very frustrating because people don't understand. Not because they don't understand, but the fact that, you know, you have to put it in such a simple terms that people do understand it, and when they do, or when they finally do understand it, they go,
it's
wow.
a step on the ladder, isn't
Yeah.
it? You get the first rung on there, and then it's almost like fishing. You get a bite, and off you go. And
that's right, but I've never ever had anyone come back to me and say, this was wrong.
No. That's because free will is coming along, and their choices.
Yeah.
I mean, like everything else in life, if something is going one way, and you know that it's not the right way, you have to change it, otherwise it's better the devil you know, if you like.
And I can just look at the other planets and try and, you know, shift it and work it around what they can do to try and shift it along into a different area. But, you know, you can only go within what their chart actually says. And like you say, at the end of the day, it's down to free will, you know, what they decide to do. If they want to keep banging their heads against the brick wall, then they do that, you know. But if they want to change, if they really want to change, then they can, if the energy is there, you know.
Yeah, it's all down to choices, isn't it? Well, as time is getting on, and it's been really good to interview you yet again.
Yeah, it's been really lovely.
Good. And a different aspect of when you first came, so that was that's definitely the same Jenny as Jackie I've always known, but a different aspect of a different take on the interview here. So, guys, before we shut down, let me just say that at the end of the credits, you'll be able to find out how to get hold of Jackie. There will be phone numbers and emails and things like that on there. You'll get a chart, which is a basic chart that you'll be able to see, and our studio manager Paul will put that on the end of the credits so you'll be able to see this. Do get in contact with Jackie. If you can't, you just get in contact with me and I will pass the message on. But for now, I say thank you so much, Jackie.
Lovely, thank
it's
you.
lovely to talk to you.
Lovely.
And this is me just signing off for another time here until we meet again on another episode. And for now, goodbye.